Good evening. I'm Fox 11 Chief Meteorologist Patrick Powell. It is Friday, July 10th of 2026, and I'm here to tell you about the heat that's building over the western United States. And this is going to encompass much of the continental United States over the next week and maybe even longer. We are going to see a hot stretch here for Wisconsin, especially central and northern Wisconsin, mainly Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. And then Thursday, we will cool down. So I'll explain that. The first thing is this huge area of high pressure that's sitting over the western United States, the desert Southwest, where you would expect the heat to be pretty much any time of the year. There's also a big Bermuda high, and that comes into play later in the forecast. So we'll talk a little bit about that. But this is the main driver, this area of high pressure moving towards the north. And we're going to see the heights expand. So warm air expands, it's hotter, it takes up more space. Cold air is cooler and more dense. So when you get all this hot weather building and the jet stream riding up into southern Canada, that is going to help lead to this hot weather that sits over especially the northern plains, northern Minnesota, and eastern Montana over the next couple of days. So on Monday, this huge area of high pressure is centered right over South Dakota. But look at the jet stream flow. The flow is from Salt Lake City to Billings, up through Montana, across North Dakota, and then diving into Wisconsin. So our heat is going to be coming in from northern Minnesota and into northern Wisconsin before working southward. There are going to be a number of days in the forecast where it's hotter in Green Bay and it's hotter in Marquette than it is in Madison or Chicago or St. Louis because of the way this heat is coming in. It's not the way your heat typically comes in here. We usually get a southwesterly wind that brings in the heat and the humidity from Iowa and Missouri and Illinois and Nebraska. In this case, it's going to be coming off of the northern Rocky Mountains, across the northern plains. So it's not going to be as humid as we were 2 weeks ago. It is just going to be hot. Hot air heats up, or when it's drier air heats up more readily than very humid air. The net result is the same. We'll still have a heat index, I think, near 100 Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday, but it's going to be like 93, 94 degrees. The dew point's only around 70 instead of that mid and upper 70 dew points that we had like a week and a half ago. Anyway, jet stream up north of Winnipeg, diving across into the east central portions of the United States. We continue with this hot pattern in place, firmly in place on Tuesday. And it's really centered over South Dakota at that point. But as we head later into the week, especially after Wednesday, watch the jet stream back towards the southwest and the area of high pressure recenter itself out in the Great Basin. That's going to mean that the hot weather hasn't really left the continental United States. It's just realigned back into the central portions of the Great Basin. But the jet stream is coming from northwest to southeast, basically from Rapid City down towards Cincinnati. So that is going to help us out because as the jet stream drops towards the southwest, we get on the north side of the jet stream, we'll see a little bit cooler weather, and we'll also break the humidity a bit towards the end of next week. There are already extreme heat warnings widespread. North Dakota, Montana, Wyoming, back into Utah. There's an extreme heat watch already for northern sections of Minnesota, but not central and southern Minnesota, not Iowa, not Nebraska, not in Wisconsin, at least yet. We may get a heat advisory for Monday, Tuesday timeframe. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out. But the extreme heat warning for tomorrow is for all of North Dakota, well, most of North Dakota, and north central portions of South Dakota and into Montana. That's where the bulk of the heat is going to be. So I've done this with the future track temperatures, just plotting computer model high temperatures. So take a little bit of this with a grain of salt, but it's probably accurate within a degree or two in most locations. We're at 86 tomorrow, 85 Marquette, 91 in Minneapolis, but 100 to 105 degree highs, western, north, and South Dakota, and through the eastern sections of Montana. As we get into Sunday, look at this. Highs could approach 115 in parts of eastern Montana. Just very, very hot for them. 105 in Great Falls, 111 in Billings, 109 in Bismarck, 106 in Rapid City. But notice how the heat is trying to stream across northern Minnesota. 86 in Duluth, but the temperatures could break 100 even on Sunday northwest of Lake Superior into the south central portions of Canada. So that's an extreme concern because it's extraordinarily unusual to have 100 to 105-degree highs north of Duluth in the Arrowhead of Minnesota, usually one of the cooler places. But you can see the bulk of the heat still out over North and South Dakota on Monday, 110 in Glendive, 108 in Bismarck. We're up to 92. And that's because that air is streaming in from the northwest. That is not going to be as humid as our typical heat waves, but it's still going to feel extraordinarily hot and fairly humid. Heat index near 100 both Monday, Tuesday, and probably into Wednesday. Look at this. On Tuesday, forecasting high of 95 here in Green Bay. Computer models are putting 99 in Marquette. Extremely hot for the Upper Peninsula in the northern sections of Wisconsin. On the flip side of that, look to the south. 84 in Champaign, Illinois, 91 in Chicago, 86 in Madison. So the heat really coming in from the northwest. Again, a little unusual. We don't see this very often, but because of the setup with that huge area of high pressure centered over South Dakota, it's taking this heat and just transporting it right in from the northwest. High temperatures on Wednesday, still 100 to 105 over the central portions of North and South Dakota. Starts to expand down into Nebraska as that area of high pressure backs up towards the southwest. And we do start to cool down because the jet stream was dropping more towards the southwest. And that really helps us out heading into the latter portions of next week. On Friday, look at this, 57 in Duluth on Friday, 66 in Marquette. We're still in the mid 80s, but the 100-degree readings are not all that far away. They are slowly shifting back towards the southwest as this heat dome is going to just take shape again over the Great Basin heading into next weekend. But even on Saturday, you can see the heat, the real heat, has pushed well off to the southwest. So we're going to see a couple of hot days. It is not going to last in Wisconsin nearly as long as it will be for eastern Montana, South Dakota, parts of Nebraska, where they're going to see maybe 6 to 10 days and maybe even longer with high temperatures exceeding 100 in widespread areas. This, the heat risk from the National Weather Service, has a major risk for heat Saturday, basically where you'd expect eastern sections of Montana, all of North Dakota, parts of Minnesota. This is based on the location. So what you would typically see. So if it's extraordinarily hot, you're hitting record highs, the humidity is very high, and the people in those areas aren't used to it, that increases the heat risk. So it's major risk out to the west, extreme risk over portions of eastern Montana, northern sections of Wyoming on Sunday. And then as we head into Monday, we start to get into more of a major risk. Most of the Upper Peninsula, a lot of northern Wisconsin, high temperatures that you typically don't see in those areas. Notice the heat risk still for eastern Wisconsin, most of the Upper Peninsula on Tuesday in the major category, extreme category out where you have that days-long heat wave going on over North and South Dakota. But it's really, even though their temperatures are probably in the 80s and 90s, it's not that unusual for summer for southern Illinois or Iowa or Nebraska to see that. It's much more unusual for us. Now, once this heat starts to break, it shifts back towards the Great Basin, but that Bermuda high starts to back up. And that's going to do some interesting things on the East Coast in the long range. So this is Sunday. You can see, I mean, it's hot through the southeast, as you would expect. This is really typical for this time of the year. Have highs into the 80s and 90s. Most of the 90s still back in Oklahoma and Kansas and Texas. And we have some 90s popping up in parts of Virginia, North Carolina. Obviously, Florida is going to be hot, especially when this Bermuda high starts backing up. That comes with the heat and excessive humidity. Highs near 100 in Orlando, 101 in Jacksonville. This is on Wednesday, but 103 in Raleigh, and a widespread 100 bullet starting to show up over North Carolina and Virginia. We'll have to see exactly how this plays out, but it could be extremely hot the end of next week over the Carolinas, up into Virginia, and then south into Georgia. And notice how it's kind of backing up. That's because that Bermuda high is starting to back up. And a week from tomorrow, look at this, widespread 100-degree readings, basically Charlotte, Atlanta, Augusta, Savannah, down into portions of Florida. There are parts of Florida that could see 105 for a high heading into the end of next week. And then eventually that starts to head westward and gets back towards Arkansas and Louisiana, where they could see some very hot weather as well. For us specifically, I'm expecting a high around 86 tomorrow afternoon. Notice most of Wisconsin in the mid 80s. But if you look out at the edge of the map, everything out here in the white is 100 plus. So the heat starting to show up out in North Dakota tomorrow. As we move into Sunday, our highs climb up to 88. Again, the flow coming in from the northwest and the mid and upper levels, it's not going to bring in a ton of humidity on Sunday. Sunday, pretty reasonable. The high at 88, but the heat index only going to be around 89 or 90 at best because the dew points, that humidity hasn't climbed yet. But look it out to the west. 100 to 105 out here in North Dakota, western sections of Minnesota, much of Minnesota, highs well into the upper 90s. And then on Monday, the heat finally breaks loose. And look at this. High temperature around 97 in Marquette, 94 for Green Bay, 92 in Fond du Lac. Most of the Upper Peninsula, highs expected to be in the 90s and mid 90s at that on Monday. And Tuesday will probably be the hottest day before that jet stream starts to slide towards the southwest. 100 in Minneapolis on Monday afternoon, and widespread 100-degree readings over North and South Dakota. But again, we're on the edge of this. I think on Monday, we hit a high right around 93 or 94. I do think as we get into the day on Tuesday, probably more like 95. I think that will be our hottest day. But for tomorrow, enjoy it. Highs in the mid-80s, full sunshine because of the high pressure sitting in the eastern Great Lakes. We should see nice weather tomorrow, a warm day, but nice, a little above average for this time of the year. Hot on Sunday, and then we're really going to see things heat up heading into Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. We'll have full details on this heat up coming up on Fox 11 News.